Hi, this is Jonathan Rosenhead, Jerusalem psychotherapist. This week's Torah and Psychology post of Parashat Vayeitzei is going to discuss family therapy. Because this week's Parsha details the family interactions of Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov marries Rachel and Leah. He has a father-in-law called Lavan, and all the children that are born, the Shvatim, and we see a large family developing. But in this week's Parsha we have the different interactions between the family members. And from a structural family therapy perspective, we can analyze these interactions to try to understand what is Yaakov Avinu's family system. Because from a structural family therapy perspective, it looks at the interaction, the behavioral patterns between the family members. It looks at the family system as a whole to try to understand what is contributing towards the imbalance or the balance of the family system, or the functioning or the dysfunctioning of the family system. And within structural family therapy, there's a few key concepts. One of these concepts is the IP. The IP is the identified patient, where this is the family member that seemingly is problematic, is the cause of the problems. But from a structural family therapy perspective, we say that the IP is not the person that is the problem, but rather they are a symptom of the dysfunctioning of the family system. That the problems of the family, in the general structure of the family, they manifest through this individual. So they do have the problem, and the family tries to attach the blame, perhaps, for the dysfunction of the family towards this individual, but the family therapist will try to remove the blame from the IP, and will try to explain and initiate change within the family system. And there's also, the family therapist will look at the functioning of the family on a spectrum of disconnected or enmeshed. Disconnected or detached is when the emotional expression in the family system doesn't evoke any response from the other family members. Everyone lives in their own world, in their own private individual world, without really responding to the other person's needs within the family system. But enmeshed is when people are so involved and so connected with the other people that it's to an intrusive extent, that they're too overly involved in the other person's life. So let's look at this family system of Yaakov Avinu from this structural family perspective. We would say, perhaps, and this is the traditional understanding of Lavan, that he is the IP. He's the one that has the problem. He's the one that causes the problems in the family system that we see in this week's Parsha. But if we look at the Pesukim, we get the impression, perhaps, of a loving father, a father that wants to marry off his children, cares about his daughters. He wants his son-in-law to stay. He makes agreements and to try to ensure that Yaakov will stay and to build his family close to Lavan. And he gets upset. He's very upset when they leave and they run away, and he comes to Yaakov and says, "Why did you leave without telling me, without giving me the chance to hug and kiss and say farewell to my children?" And this gives the impression, perhaps, of a Lavan as being a caring father, a loving father within an enmeshed family system. He's too overly involved, to the point that he comes to Yaakov and says, these daughters, they are mine, and the children are mine, the grandchildren, the same, they are mine. And he says to Yaakov, you're not allowed to go and marry any other wives apart from the wives that you have. My daughters are your only wives. I do not allow you to marry any other women in addition. And we see Lavan, perhaps he's intruding on Yaakov and on his subsystem, or his sub-family system. It's an enmeshed family system, each person involved in the other person's life. So from a structural family therapy perspective, it changes our perspective of Lavan from being the traditional bad person to being the IP. But the IP is a symptom of the dysfunctioning in the entire family system. And it's no wonder that afterwards, in the following parashas, we see the problems between the children, between the Shvatim, Yosef and the brothers. And this is a repeated problem, a problem that repeats itself within generations. From a family perspective, from a family therapy perspective, this is called the intergenerational theory, when problems in one family are repeated in further generations. Have a great Shabbos and keep well.